Welcome to Small Business Saturdays video series with your host and my husband.
And my dad, Aaron Montgomery.
Join the conversation.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome into Small Business Saturdays. My name is Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at oursuccessgroup.com. Got the mute button turned back off there. So thanks very much, Chuck, for letting me know. And hopefully everybody should be able to hear now. So what we're going to be talking about here this morning is reigniting self-trust and how we do that and what that means for us and our businesses, and just the next step on this roadmap that we've been going through. So this would be step number 4. We started off with empower yourself and E plus R equals O. I know you can't see it with the microphone in front of me for those of you tuned in live, but I've got my E plus R equals O shirt on here. And that was number 1. Number 2, we talked about finding your purpose and living in that and what that does for us and how that helps our businesses grow and how that helps us make better decisions and all that kind of fun stuff. And then last week we talked about deciding what you require, getting into the whole concept of, what it is that you want is not greed or materialistic. It's really kind of the steps that you need to do to get to along the way and how we find those and how we put those to work for us and that kind of thing. So today we get into reigniting self-trust. And I think maybe the best way to get into this and to start this out here is a book that has been widely considered the original kind of roadmap to success, the original quote unquote self-help book out there. It was written by a gentleman named Napoleon Hill back in the 1920s, 30s, something like that. I don't know the exact date. But he went around and interviewed all of the most successful people of the time, was funded or at least pushed forward by Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate, one of the richest men in the world at that time. And the book was called Think and Grow Rich. And one of the key passages inside of that book, Think and Grow Rich, was whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And that was a basis of it. When we talk about think and grow rich, thinking about what it is that you can believe. So believing in yourself, or in the case of what we're talking about here today, reigniting that self-trust and belief. So we have to believe that it's possible to be able to achieve that success in our business. So if we say, okay, I would like to do X, but if you can't internally believe that, have that belief that you're going to do it, it's going to be very difficult. In fact, most would probably say even impossible if you can't find that belief one way or another. The challenge is over the course of our years and over the course of time, we've lost that ability to believe in ourselves when it comes to doing something difficult or outside of our comfort zone. So the first thing we have to realize here that is belief is really just simply a choice. When we talk about having beliefs or having that self-trust or any of those types of things that come up around a belief, really at the end of the day, a belief is simply just a choice. And I know that seems odd to just kind of simplify it to that level, but if we really think about what a belief truly is, it is really just a choice that we've made. It's a choice that we made to think a thought over and over and over again until it becomes automatic. And so any belief that you have is something that's been quote unquote installed over time. it becomes second nature to you. That's all a belief is. It's just a thought that we think in our heads so often that it's now become a belief. And so if we can believe negativity, we can believe we're not good enough, if we can believe that the world is out to get us, if we can believe all of those things that really truly aren't serving us, well, the great news is we can instead choose to believe the opposite of those things. We can believe that the world is going to give me everything that I need in the exact time that I need it. We can believe that we're able to do anything that we would ever want to do. We can believe that we are good enough. We can believe in our community. We can believe in things around us. And so that really is the basis of this idea of reigniting self-trust, is we have to create those beliefs. And if we can go back and realize that a belief is simply just a choice, I'm not saying it will be simple, or I'm sorry, it will be simple, but it won't necessarily be easy, because you have to overcome years and years of the other thoughts that aren't serving you. So one of the first ways to kind of look at this is, most people have this idea that we need to, I'll believe it when I see it. Right. And we always start there with that idea that, oh, well, I'll see it when I believe it. I mean, that gets said all the time. I still hear that on a pretty regular basis from people, like, oh, you could be successful. Oh, sure, I'll believe that when I am successful. Well, the reality is that it's actually the other way around. The reality is you have to believe it to see it. And so that's where we have to kind of make that switch. We have to think about this differently. So going back to belief is a choice, and then the fact that we've got to believe it to see it, then we can start getting where we want to go inside of our business, inside of our lives. And again, all of this ties so closely to your business. If you're out there sharing what it is that you do and you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to attract anybody, because they want to go with people that they can trust. They want to go with people who believe in themselves. And I think what holds a lot of us back is that we are really nice people, right? And we're my new latest thing that I like to say is that I'm a recovering people pleaser. And one of the things that we've been told throughout our lives is, you don't want to brag, right? And there is that fine line between bragging and believing in yourself. But we're so afraid of pushing up against that fine line of bragging that we stay way far away, and we just don't believe in ourselves, and we don't share with anybody that we believe in what we do. Do you love the things that you make, right? Yes, we can all pick out the little things that, we'd like to do better, but if you can realize that what you're doing is better than what your customers can do, that's why they're coming to you, right? And even if customers aren't coming to you yet, it's because you haven't put it out there, and with a belief in yourself and with a belief in what you're doing. Like, if you're excited and passionate about something, you'll talk to anybody about it. You'll go get in front of a camera and talk about it. All of those. So whatever it is that you're passionate about and whatever it is that you believe in, the things that you're good at, those things you have no problem sharing. But when we're not confident in ourselves, we cower, we try to stay away, we don't share, we don't talk about it, we don't promote ourselves, all of those things. So we have to change that narrative from see it to believe it into believe it to see it. Now, one of the things that could be holding you back from this or from achieving success is the fact of what it is that you currently know. What experiences have you had? What knowledge have you gained already that, again, might be holding you back? If you don't have self-trust, you may have made a mistake and you're still carrying that mistake with you from years and years ago. Maybe when you first started your business, you had a customer tell you that they didn't like what you were doing, or, there was something that happened. Well, what happens to most of us is we then hold on to that and we continue to beat ourselves for that, what we felt was a mistake. But the reality is that was just a learning opportunity. Okay, now either A, That's not the type of customer that you want to work with because your values don't match up. The reason the customer was upset was it just their expectations weren't met. That doesn't mean that you didn't put out something or do something that could have met the right customer's expectations. It just meant that that customer had a different expectation than you were able to achieve. And so it could be a sense that they didn't have the same values that you had, or, you just weren't confident enough. You didn't share enough. You didn't educate enough up front. But we take that and hold on to that situation, that challenge that happened in such a way that we just want to be protected from that ever happening to us again. So we make this belief, or we take that knowledge that we had, and then we're holding on to that. But that right there could be what's actually holding you back. You have to let go of those things. A great story that illustrates this perfectly, and I'll just give you the okay, now pun intended, the Cliff Notes story of it here, the short version, and you can go look it up if you want to go deeper. But and I don't know the timing of it. I think this was back in the 70s or 80s. A gentleman named Cliff Young became kind of the father of modern ultra running, like 100 plus milers, over 100 miles. So this happened in Australia. He was a farmer, an older guy. I think he was at that time, he was maybe even in his 50s. And they had a race that went from one side of Australia to the other. And he ended up signing up for it. Like I said, in his 50s, he shows up without running gear, without all the support and all that other stuff. And in fact, they didn't even want to let him in because they were worried that he was going to kill himself and that would look bad on their race. And, the other runners were making fun of him because he didn't have the proper shoes and all this other stuff. And to fast forward, he ends up winning the race because no one ever told him that he had to stop and sleep a certain amount of time. No one ever told him that he needed to, run really hard and do all these different things. He only did what he knew to do. He was a farmer, a sheep farmer, and there would be times where he would have to round up his sheep, and he didn't have a horse. He didn't have enough money to have a horse or anything like that. And so he would be out there on the countryside, awake for days at a time, just shuffling along slowly. And so he went out there and he shuffled along slowly, and started off the race. I think it was like a 5-day, 6-day race. Typically, he started off the race where he was way behind because he was just shuffling along, just, kind of moving at a slow pace, where all the other runners, kind of took off and did their thing. But then what happened is that first night, he only stopped and slept for like an hour, just enough to kind of take the edge off. And then he just kept going because he didn't know any better. He just was like, okay, he didn't see anybody else around him. He just figured, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. And lo and behold, that first night, he ends up passing somebody. And then it just kept progressing and he just kept going. And he actually shaved, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but like close to 12 hours off of the record, based on the fact that he just didn't know any better and he did his thing. But now the Cliff Young shuffle is the technique that people use to run these super long races, and yet he was not this physical specimen. He was older and all this other stuff. So the point of the story, and like I said, tried to make the Cliff Notes story, is your inexperience is actually a bonus for you, right? You don't know what you don't know. So if you can believe in yourself and push forward, then you might actually create something new, come up with a complete new way to do things, have an entirely new technique. And that will be entirely yours. And then you will be the leader in that space, right? So don't let that inexperience hold you back. In fact, use that to your advantage, right? We all get all of this. Oh, you got to do this. You got to do this. And, I have my opinions on the way certain things should be done. I know lots of other people. I mean, heck, we get into the, do we dip mugs or not dip mugs thing, right? And at the end of the day, who cares? If you can do it your way and it works for you and you're able to make a profit, then I say go for it. Will I give you my opinion? Absolutely, because I believe in myself. I believe that I've done the work, but that doesn't mean that you have to listen to everything that I've said because I've done the work. Use what you know, take nuggets from people. I'll give you my explanation for why not to dip a mug. I believe that it puts micro cracks inside of it, even if you don't actually see it, regardless of what temperature that mug is, and then go from there. So you use that in experience as another way to actually believe in yourself. Understand that that could be what your bonus is. That could be what catapults you to success. So with all that being said, that's why we've got to reignite self-trust. That's a little bit how we can do it, and just believing in ourselves and flipping the script from realizing that a belief is simply just a choice. It's a thought that you've thought over and over again, and you can make a different choice should you choose to. Go back to number one here, empowering yourself, E plus R equals O, and take 100% responsibility. Okay, well, I choose to think a different thought. And yes, you are going to have to think that thought over and over again. You might think it, and then something happens and the thought goes away. And so you have to be specific about thinking that thought over and over and over again. Yes, I can do this. Yes, I'm good enough. Yes, things will show up when they need to. Yes, there are challenges, but I can overcome them. Look for solutions. Start believing those thoughts. And then once you believe it, then you will see it. So from there, okay, so how do we now reignite self-trust? Well, the first thing we've got to understand is we have this internal voice, right? Everybody has it. Whether how much we listen to it or not is completely up to you. Again, that goes back to being a choice. But at the end of the day, at the end of your life, in fact, the person that you will have spent the most time with is yourself, right? Even if you have a significant other, even if you have family that you spend a lot of time with, even if there's people around you all the time, you will spend the most time in your life with yourself. And because of that fact, your inner voice has all of the data, right? It's seen all of the failures. It's got all of the, ability to either be an inner coach, which is what we want. But what happens to most of us is that inner voice becomes an inner critic, right? I've heard people say things like, if we talk to other people the way we talk to ourselves, we wouldn't have any friends. One of the things that I get to do in my life that I'm very passionate about and love doing is I get to be a volleyball coach, and I coach 14, 13, 12, 10. I've got all the way down to 10-year-olds on this team that I'm coaching right now. And they are phenomenal young men. Do they always do everything right? Do they always make me super happy and excited about the way that they're acting? No, they're young kids. They're boys trying to figure out who the heck they are. And so every once in a while, they need to get snapped back into reality a little bit. Okay, hey guys, and we'll do some punishment of some sort that is reasonable, doing some crunches or some sit-ups or something, just to let them know, hey, I get it, guys, but guess what? We need to do better. Like, let's push ourselves. And that's the kind of thing that we need to have internally, is that coach. But I would never say to them some of the things I say to myself. Oh, you're not worthy. You're terrible. I hate you. I can't believe you did that. Right. These are some of the thoughts that come up internally for us. But if you think about that, would you ever actually say that to somebody else that you're trying to coach, trying to help and try to make better? Absolutely not. Would you go, you know what? I'm a little bit disappointed, but I'm asking you to do this because I know you can, right? I wouldn't ask you to do this if I didn't know that you could do it. And so I want you to hold yourself to a little higher standard, right? That's what a coach does. A coach pushes somebody to be better than they think they can be by believing in them more than they believe in themselves. And so we have to figure out a way to turn that critic into a coach. And again, we go back to that idea that a belief is simply a choice. It's a choice of thoughts that we have to think. And so the same thing happens when we talk about turning a critic into a coach. It comes from making a choice. It comes from being able to recognize those signs when your inner voice becomes a critic. And when you recognize that sign, you can then at that point stop, change what you're doing, walk out of the room, do something to kind of, again, wake them up, just like you would somebody that you're coaching. You're going to wake up that inner critic, and you're going to say, hey, I appreciate you looking out for me, but I need you to actually come up with a solution for me, not just pick out the problems. And that's where a coach comes into play in our internal voice. Is it's about looking for solutions instead of only looking for problems or things we did wrong or the negativity. We need to identify those things, but we don't need to keep identifying that. What we need to do is then identify that and now take that experience and find what we can use from it. What did you learn, right? And Jerry says, things I once knew, I am not sure I know now, right? And so, and that's what we have to start thinking about. Okay, I knew this was a belief. Well, maybe that's not reality. In fact, it's not reality. You can create whatever you want by the beliefs and thoughts that you have. And Kylene says, always a good reminder that we have the power to think differently. We just have to believe we can do it. And that's what this particular part of the roadmap is all about here. It is reigniting that self-trust. So the person we spend the most time with is ourselves. So knowing that, we have to take that inner voice and we need to change that critic into a coach. And one of the best ways to do that is to get rid of the word I can't. And I believe we talked about this a little bit back in the Empower Yourself section in number 1 here, the I can't versus I won't. But let me just cover that again real quick. If I want you guys to just take a moment and think about something that you believe that you can't do. I can't earn $1 million. I can't lose weight, right? Maybe that's something that I'm thinking about. Whatever it is for you, think about that and just say, I can't. And then as you're saying that I can't, with just pick a couple things. We don't need to go and beat ourselves up again. We're trying to find the coach, not the critic. And just say that in your head for one moment. I don't want you to dwell on it, but I want you to think about that feeling that's associated with that word I can't and that statement that you're making. And then once you've done that, I'd like you to take that same statement and put a I won't in front of it. So change can't with won't. And now say, I can't make $1 million. Versus I won't make $1 million, or I won't lose weight, right? And as you're saying it with the I won't, how does that feel different? What does that feel different for you? A lot of things that I've heard people say, I feel more empowered. I feel like it's my choice. It gives me, right? So that's where we go back to empowering ourselves. But what we need to do is we need to say, I'm not doing that right now, but I believe that I can. And when I'm ready for that, it will come to me, right? And so giving up I can't is going to be one of the best ways to reignite your self-trust. Is every time you hear the word I can't in anything that you say, stop and then figure out how to reconfigure that. So the reason for that, well, obviously we know that can't brings this negative connotation. You probably just felt it there, that versus I can't and I won't, and then taking it that one step further. And if you can believe that it's possible, right? So Kylene says the can't to her makes me feel responsible and that I have a choice when I change can't with won't. There you go. Thank you, Kylene. So again, that's just that one little step right there. That was a little spark, bringing back that self-trust. And so just keep making those sparks. And because the reality is people that we look up to as successful people, they didn't know exactly what they were going to do. They didn't have this natural built-in, they had to overcome all the same things that we're having to overcome. And they may have had different resources or different, but none of that matters. At the end of the day, success is actually going to leave clues for you. You don't have to know exactly what you're going to do, but you do have to be able to believe in yourself. And so they were able to figure out a way to just believe in themselves a little bit more and have gotten there. But the great part is, because those success leaves clues, others have actually done what you're trying to do, right? They may not have done it the exact same way you're going to do it, but the steps are there. And it's not that lack of information that's holding you back. It's the fact that we don't look for the clues. It's the fact that we only rely on the current knowledge that we have. Again, we go back to what could be holding you back is what your beliefs are. But the reality is, success leaves those clues along the way. We just have to tune our brains to start looking for them. But the reasons that we don't, and you may identify with one or all of these things. I know for me, I've identified with all of them at some point or in time. But the reasons why we don't look for those clues, it's because we kind of see it, but it's inconvenient, right? We either have to do something that, maybe we have to drive across town to find something or talk to somebody, or maybe we have to, for me, I hate talking on the phone. I don't know what it is, and I'm working on it, but I have to pick up the phone. I have to call somebody, do something like that. We have to get outside of our comfort zone, so it's that inconvenience. So that's one of the reasons why we don't look for those success clues that are just laying out there for us. The other thing that a lot of times will keep us from looking for those things is we have that fear of rejection or failure. If I need to go talk to somebody, I need to, ask for the order, I need to follow up with the customer, whatever it is, I fear that they're going to go no. And that's going to be, more than I can handle in that moment, or that I'm going to fail and that this isn't going to work out exactly as I planned. The reality is, it isn't going to work out exactly as you have planned. But if you believe that it will happen, it will get to where you want to go. It might not be the way you thought it would be. And that's totally okay. Who cares, right? Who cares how you get there? So that fear of rejection or failure is maybe holding us back for looking for those success clues. The other thing that will hold us back from looking for those success clues is that it's going to require change. It's going to require you to look at the challenge in a new way. It's going to require you to find solutions and not just problems, right? As humans, we are excellent. I mean, I have not met somebody that couldn't find a problem. I mean, think about just the normal conversations you have on a day-to-day basis. What's the weather like? Oh man, it's cold. It's snowy. This challenge. We've got all the problems, but we also have the solutions and we just don't know about it. Well, guess what? It's 2 degrees outside where I'm at right now. It's 72 degrees where I'm standing currently. So I have a solution. Stay in my house. Turn the heater on. Build a fire if I need to. Whatever there is a solution out there to every problem that we have, but we normally stop at the problem. So it requires us to change the way we do things. It requires us to go from being problem pointer outers and woe is me into going back to taking responsibility and realizing it's a choice. I'm cold. Well, I won't get out of the cold. Well, that's your choice. If you say I can't get out of the cold, you're giving it away to somebody else. But you can make a choice. And again, I get that people's circumstances are different across the board, but ultimately they can find a way. And a lot of people that have hit rock bottom do discover that. I'm just hoping that you don't have to hit your ultimate rock bottom to be able to realize that you can believe in yourself and that you can find that self-trust. And then the last reason why people won't choose to look for those success clues is it means hard work. It means taking an action. It means, coming to something like this, but then doing something with it. Right? It's great to hear all of these wonderful people speaking, telling you, learning from whoever you might be learning from, taking in a podcast, listening to Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or Oprah Winfrey or whoever it is for you, right? And it means taking that stuff and then doing the work that comes along with putting that stuff into action. You have to do the work. It means that you got to stop cutting corners. It means you got to stop holding on to these crazy principles that just aren't serving you or your business, right? Like, oh, well, that just isn't me. Well, is the you that you are being right now, is that getting you where you want to go? If you are successful and feel successful, perfect, great. But if you want to do more and be more and, move somewhere where it's warmer, or, have more time with your family, or, have a better, more sustainable, hardworking business, then you got work to do. And it may be some of those principles that you're holding on to that are holding you back, right? So you got to do the work, you got to do the action, and it's about just being a little bit better than you currently are. And that's not to say that you're a failure right now. That is to say that you are possible, right? In impossible, if you just put a space in there and a hyphen and change that to I'm possible, I think you may have seen that picture from me. I've used it a little bit. So when you are at that point, right, you just need to go, yep, I'm possible. I can be a little bit better. I can do a little bit more, right? And so I'm going to talk about some ways here to start reigniting that self-trust a little bit more with some actual action items here. But the reality is success does leave clues, and we've got all of the things that we need in front of us. And we just have to be willing to look for them. We have to overcome the fact that it might be inconvenient. We have to overcome our fear of rejection or failure. We have to embrace the fact that it's going to require some change and looking for solutions. And we have to be willing to do the work and take the actions, right? And I'm not here preaching that you've got to grind and, work. No, I'm saying we have to do things to get a little bit better. And that could be just little things, right? Okay, I need to make one small change in my life. I need to make one change. I need to fire one customer, right? And so it's not overwhelming. It's actually very doable if we can believe in ourselves. So, yeah. And so Jerry, here you go. And this is exactly it. So Jerry wrote, I can be successful in my new rhinestone business. And then she, in parentheses, says that was really hard, and with really being all capitalized there. But you just did it, right? And so it was really hard, but you were able to do it, and you put it out there in public, and you even allowed me to read it because you put it out there in public. So, as difficult as that was, I totally understand that. You were able to do it, even though maybe for a moment you thought that you couldn't. Right? And so just continue saying that and continue making that choice to follow up with that. Or Facebook user says, or like me, I'm clueless, right? And that's just the story that you're telling yourself. That's just the belief that you've had. And Jerry, I am super proud of you. That's fantastic that you've overcome that. And yeah, nice job, Jerry. Really proud of you. But back to a Facebook user here that said, or like me, I am clueless. That's a belief that you're telling yourself. And maybe, it comes across as I'm just joking. I want to be fun, or maybe you feel like that deep down. But the reality is you're not. You have all the knowledge that you need. And when you need something, it will show up for you if you allow it. We just have to get out of our own ways and go, yeah, you know what? I don't know that particular thing right now. But if I did need to know it right now, I would. And that is the reality. The things that we need will show up when they need them if we allow that space for them to show up. If we get over those I can'ts and realize that it's an I won't, that it's a choice that you're making, and then say, I can. Like Jerry just did there. I can be successful. You absolutely can. And you absolutely will, as long as you continue to keep believing that. Every single person that we look up to as successful, I already kind of talked about that a little bit, but the thing that they've done differently is they've just believed in themselves longer than the others were willing to do. And that's reality. So hopefully that is getting us in the right mindset. Now let's talk about some nuts and bolts of what we can do to reignite self-trust here. One of the most important things that we can do for ourselves. Again, we talked about the fact that the person we spend the most time with ourselves is ourselves, right? Sorry, the person that we spend the most time with is ourselves. And when we talked about that, we also said, yeah, and we know the most about, the things that we failed at, the promises we didn't keep, those kinds of things, that whatever it is that's causing us to not believe in ourselves. And so the first way to start believing in ourselves more is to start making sure that we do what we say we're going to do. Right. And most of the time we end up not doing what we say we're going to do, not because we're bad people or because we're total screw up or anything like that. It's because we overpromised what was possible. I'm a time optimist. I always think that I can do more in a shorter amount of time. I showed up a little bit late because I was trying to do a little bit too much in between when I woke up this morning and when I came to do this. Right? So those things happen. That's just part of what happens. So we have to consciously start working on doing what we say we're going to do. And one of the problems is we just end up saying things in passing that we don't even think about, right? We just immediately react. Customer comes to us and says, hey, I need to have this quote. And you go, yeah, I'll get that right back to you. And then they leave and you go, oh crap, I've got to do all these things. I've got these jobs I got to get out. I'm not going to be able to get to that quote right away. But I just told them I get right back to them. So the better thing to do there is to take and stop. And when you're about to commit to something, when you're about to say you're going to do something, is to say, okay, hold on a second. The customer says, hey, I need a quote. Oh, great. Stop instead of going, yeah, I'll get that right back to you. Right. We just want to solve it. We just want to be done with it. The thing to do is, hey, I need this quote. You can say, oh, I really appreciate the opportunity. When do you need that by? And what that does is that A, gives you more information to make a better decision. B, it gives you a moment to think, right? It gives you that moment to go, okay, they're thinking about their answer. I'm going to listen intently for that. But in that space, while they're thinking of their answer, I'm going to think, okay, what do I need to do? Oh man, I've got 8 hours worth of work that I need to do to get done. I'm not going to be able to get back to my computer until this time happen, all of those things. And what will happen is they'll say, well, this is a project a couple months down the road, if you can just, sometime this week, boom, perfect. Okay. I can commit to that. Or maybe they're going, yeah, this is really, I've got to have this job out tomorrow. So can you get this back to me? And oh boy, my production's already booked up and I'd love to be able to help you, but I don't want to make a promise I can't deliver on. Who would you rather work with? Right? If you're the customer, which person would you rather work with? The person that said, oh, wow, I'm actually really busy. Unfortunately, I won't be able to deliver on time. And I want to be honest with you because I don't want to make a commitment that then I'm going to fail for you. And you're going to be upset with me. I don't want that. I want to be able to serve you and do it well. Or versus the person says, oh yeah, I'll do it. And then try to figure out how to do it and then doesn't deliver, right? Which person as a customer would you rather work with? And then internally what happens is then you start beating yourself up. Oh man, I never get the quotes out on time. I'm not getting my work done on time. And we start building that inner critic up instead of the inner coach. So that's the first thing you want to do is to make sure that you're doing what you say you're going to do. And this is a work in progress for me. I told somebody yesterday that I was going to get back to them at the end of the day with some information they needed. They were going to be an affiliate for our success group. And I was in a low moment of believing in myself. And I said, yeah, I'll get that back to you by tomorrow. But after I started thinking about it, the reality was that I needed my virtual assistant to help me. And so I needed to get in touch with her first, and I needed her to do her part of it. And that normally takes a day or two, right? I mean, I could jump in there and do it, but I had a lot of other things. I'm traveling, so I wasn't sure when I was going to get home because we were having some winter storms here. And so I should have stopped in that moment, but I didn't. But here's the great part is the only thing I needed to do to change all that was just tell the truth. Right. And so I went back and said, hey, I I apologize. I said I was going to get back to you by tomorrow, but I'm traveling. So would it be okay if I get back to you next week? Is this something that you need to try to put things together this weekend, or is next week fine? And what I got back was, oh yeah, that's totally fine. I'm not going to be able to get to this until about a week or so myself. So, anytime next week is fine. So I went from, not doing what I was saying I was going to do into apologizing in a way that was sincere and asking for more time, and easily got more time, won my trust of myself back, won the trust back from that potential partner. And so I did what I said I was going to do. So we need to have a way to make sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do. And that doesn't mean that when you don't, you have to beat yourself up. What it means is then you have to reevaluate and adjust, right? We don't want to beat ourselves up. And so we want to try to put ourselves in a place where we don't need to do that. But when we do fail to do what we say we're going to do, then all we've got to do is understand, okay, what can I do to be a little bit better, right? We went back to that, talking about how success leaves clues and just doing things a little bit better than you're currently doing it. Because the reality was, as a recovering people pleaser, my gut reaction the belief that I had took over. And I said, yep, I got to do it right away. And if I don't, they're going to think I'm not on the ball or who I say I'm trying to be, right? And so that's what got me. But instead of going, oh my gosh, Aaron, you screwed up, you're so terrible, just give up, go back to bed, whatever. What I need to do and what I did was I said, you know what? That's a learning opportunity. Now that gives me a chance to go, yep, I knew what was going on at that time. I had a lot of things going on. I was feeling a little overwhelmed. I was away from my family for a couple of days. So, I was feeling that a little bit, and I went back to my old people pleasing ways. So it was just a learning opportunity. It was an experience. I didn't look any worse. I still have a great relationship with that potential partner. They were happy that I was open and honest with them. And so it actually ended up being better. It actually gave me a chance to get even a little bit closer with that partnership. And so do what you say you're going to do. The next thing that we want to do here, and this is something that I think will help in a lot of ways, is this is a success principle thing. And it's talks about cleaning up your messes and incompletes. What things do you have around in your environment, in your world, that are incomplete or that are a mess, that are kind of holding you back, right? And at first, this seems really overwhelming because, when I first went through this process of looking at these messes and incompletes, it was really overwhelming. There's so many things, I want to do some things differently here in the studio. We've got some things with the house that we need to get done. We need to organize the basement, we've got to put new, the list just kept going and going and going. Now, I'm really fortunate that both my wife and I are fairly organized and clean people. So I don't have the big stacks and all that other kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean that I don't have things. And so maybe you've got a lot of things. Maybe you've got like a junk room or just things that just are getting in your way. But what happens is those things, even though we think that we can just push them off to the side, those things are actually stopping you from believing in yourself, because every time you see that thing, you say to yourself, I'm failing there. Oh man, I can't do that. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. Right. And so even though you might not be saying that out loud, even though you think you can bury that stuff away and, oh, it's just who I am. I'm this creative or whatever. And it's my system. Well, if you believe that it is a mess or an incomplete, then it is holding you back no matter what you are doing. So the way to overcome this is to make a list. Just get in there and make a list. Make a list of everything that is a mess or an incomplete. Because once you've done that, now you've allowed yourself to catalog it. And now you feel like you have control of it because you have a list. And then just make a commitment to start checking off for Kylene and I, we've got our list, and we try to check off one thing every month, maybe a couple things if we can do it, right? And we just start checking those things off, um, and it's really starting to build up that momentum. And so now we start believing in ourselves a little bit more. So that's the second thing. So first, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. Second thing is we're going to clean up those messes and incompletes, or we're going to get our arms around it and then start cleaning it up. And then the next way to start reigniting your self-trust is, and this little system that I have was actually named by my, at the time, I think it was 8 or 9, but 10-year-old now. Our brain does a lot of work, right? Without us even really always knowing about it. It's thinking of things. It's those aha moments start popping up, and or you're in the shower, or you wake up in the middle of the night, and all of those things that are happening in those moments are just your subconscious saying, "Hey, listen to me." But if you've pretty much just left those things off to the side, or ignored them, your subconscious again gets upset. They start going inside and they go, this person doesn't listen to me anyways. I'm just going to find the problems and I'm going to make them feel as bad as I feel. Right. And it seems odd that you're having this inner conversation, but you know that that's true. That's what's happening. You're having this inner conversation. So again, start treating that part of you just like you would treat a best friend or a coach, and start going, okay, I'll listen. Right. And that doesn't mean that we have to do every single thing that pops up. It means that we need to have a system to manage this. So the system that what I call it, and I got this help from my son by naming it, I call it brain rain. Every morning when I wake up, as many mornings as I can. So let me rephrase. It's not every morning. My goal is to do it every morning, but I don't, and that's okay. Right. But when I wake up, when I get going, I just start writing, and I try to write 2 pages worth of stuff, just whatever I was thinking. Sometimes I write down. So it's almost a little bit journaling, but sometimes it's ideas and concepts, or, with the book that I'm writing, sometimes parts of it just show up and I write that down, but I have that system. So my brain knows that, there is this moment. So just hold all that stuff, and it starts coming back to saying, hey, cool, now I'm going to start giving you solutions. You're listening to me, right? And again, I don't have to listen to every single thing. I have to make choices. A lot of times I just write it down, and it's there, and I felt good about it. But then, there's those moments when you're in the shower. So again, having a system that you can capture all of this stuff lets your subconscious know that you trust it, that you believe in what it's saying, and it will start doing more for you. Right. And so that's the next thing, is we just have to have a system to kind of capture all of the internal stuff, because this is also valuable inside of our business. Something's going to happen. Maybe you're out at a client lunch and you're going through your website, and something pops up for you, and you go, gosh, I know the customer doesn't see this, but it's glaring at me right now. And what happens is we'll go, oh yeah, I'll remember that. And then we leave, and then we forget about it. And then the next time we're out at a client meeting and that thing pops up, that's that reminder going, oh crap, I thought of that and I didn't do anything about it. And then at that point you go, geez, Aaron, you're an idiot, right? You start just saying those things like, gosh, you didn't do that. And we now we get into the critic, right? But if we go see that and we go, yep, I got to do that, and I write it down and I've got it documented and I can come back to it. The next time it pops up, you go, oh yeah, I remember that. Yep. I got to get to that. I'm going to get to that. Yep. But all these things happened. Right. And that's okay. I believe in myself, but I've got it noted, and I'm going to come back to it. Right. So again, having a system to keep track of all these things that you need to do. It doesn't mean you have to do all of them, but once you have a system, then you can start prioritizing what's most important to you in that moment. And so that's the second part. Have a system. Like I said, I've got the brain rain that I try to do every morning. And then the last bit here that I want you guys to think about how we can reignite self-trust is it's a real simple, but really challenging. It was really challenging for me. So it may or may not be for you. I don't want to put my beliefs on you here, but there's a thing called the mirror exercise that we've learned through the success principles. And it's it's simple in the fact that all I have to do is stand in front of a mirror before I go to bed at night, and if I can do it more often, maybe when I wake up in the morning, in those states, right, where I'm open and receptive. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit tired. Just stand in front of the mirror, look myself directly in the eyes, and if you don't do that a whole lot, it's a weird, for me, it's always been kind of this out of body experience, that almost, when looking into a mirror deeply into my own eyes, it's odd. It's almost like kind of staring at this camera, even though I can't see myself because it's off over here. It's kind of get that, I'm staring into somebody's soul, and it happens to be my own soul at that moment. And you're doing that, you're making direct eye contact, and then you just start celebrating, right? You start saying, okay, here's the things I'm proud of that I did today. Here are the challenges I overcame. Maybe there was a temptation, for me, I'm trying to reduce the sugar. So I actually have tea here, but if this was a coffee cup, my wife had always joked with me about the fact, do you want any coffee with your sugar? And that was the reality. My coffee was just a vehicle to get sugar in my system. So one of the things I've tried to do for myself is I don't use sugar any longer in my coffee. Now, I don't drink coffee as often either, which is fine too. I don't need the caffeine either. But when I do drink a coffee, I always avoid the sugar. I have a natural sweetener called Swerve that I'll use if I need that. And yes, I'm still getting some sugar, but it's not the tablespoons really full of that refined white sugar. And so the point being is that when I'm standing there in that mirror exercise and I resisted that temptation, right? And then I can tell myself, I'm proud of you for not having any sugar today. Just finding anything that you did well that you can be proud of yourself for, and having that conversation while you're looking directly into the mirror. And then at the end, just saying, I love you. Right. And that's like super powerful, to just look yourself in the eyes and say, I love you. And what happens is our ego gets in the way. If you tell somebody you're doing that, it took me a long time to share the mirror exercise because my ego was getting in the way. What would they think about me? Oh my gosh. But what I realized is this all ties back to exactly what's happening in our businesses too. Our ego is getting in the way of what we want. So start doing things like that, right? How can we start building that self-confidence and that self-trust? And the only way we build self-confidence is by surviving a risk. So I took the risk and started sharing the mirror exercise. This is not the first time I've shared it, so it feels pretty comfortable right now. The first time I shared it, I was shaking, sweaty. I'm good, right? I feel really good about this, and I believe this is something that you should do. So those are our 4 steps when we get into the nuts and bolts of how we can reignite self-trust. Is do what you say you're going to do, start working on cleaning up your messes and incompletes. Again, it's not about cleaning up everything. It's about getting a system, getting a list together, and start checking those things off as they become priorities. Try to get one thing done a month at minimum. And sooner or later, you're going to get to that point where, wow, yeah, this is it. This is right. And then something new will come on, something will break. I got to, my phone's not working the way it should. My computer, I need to, maybe reinstall software. Whatever those things are, start cleaning up those messes and completes. That's second. And then third, have a way to capture what your subconscious is telling you. When those aha moments pop up, how do you capture that, right? I've known people that get those aha moments in the shower all the time. That was kind of like their thing. They jump. I mean, heck, they'd be stuck on something and they would just go jump in the shower. Even if they didn't need to take, maybe this was their 3rd shower of the day, they just go jump in the shower. And because it was so important to them to trust in what that was happening in those moments, they ended up getting one of those underwater pens and paper thing and putting it in their shower, and they'd make notes in the shower. Right. So whatever you need to do for you, for me, a lot of it, I have not always slept very well. And a lot of it is because my brain doesn't shut down very well at night. But that was because of how I created that. And so as I started trusting in myself, I'm starting to sleep better. I'm starting to feel better, all the other stuff, but I made a system. So I have that system to try to write down in the morning. And when I don't do it, I can tell, right? And so that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is to do something like a mirror exercise, some way to start telling yourself that you believe in yourself and getting rid of the ego in that moment, right? You can do it. The first few times you do it, it's going to feel weird if you're already hung up on it. Maybe for you, you can do it right away, and that's awesome. But just keep doing it. Keep believing in yourself. It will get easier. Like I said, I've shared this mirror exercise several times now, and I'm feeling really comfortable about sharing it now. That was not the case when I first started sharing this a couple of years back. So there we go. That's what I've got for you. That's Reigniting Self-Trust. Again, putting this roadmap together here. Empower yourself, find your purpose, decide what you require. Next week, we're going to talk about being a goal getter. And I've done a webinar and stuff like that on this, but this whole concept of being a goal getter, we're really trying to put the law of attraction to work for us. We start believing in ourselves here. What happens when we then layer on that goal getter side of it is now we're bringing in, all of these things that now we're believing we can do. Remember when we talked about instead of being see it before you believe it, and going the other way, you believe it to see it. That's where we're going to go next. So next week is being a goal getter, helping that, helping the law of attraction go to work for you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions, you have any comments, you have any things that I can help you with, you can find me at success@oursuccessgroup.com. And I'm happy to share what I know and give you any feedback and help put these things into use for you. Take this and understand that this is going to be hugely valuable for your life and your business. Most of us want to kind of go, okay, I've got my business life, I've got my personal life, I've got my friends and family, I've got my spirituality, and we want to silo them out. But the reality is success is about encompassing all of those things together. So these things that we can do for ourselves internally, are going to translate into what happens for our business and all of that stuff. So there we go. That's what we're talking about. Next week, be a goal getter. And thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. And thanks for saying so, Jerry. I appreciate that. She says, great session, Aaron. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Coming up this week, if you are an OSG Club OSG member or an OSG Squad member, we have training this week. And it is about, let's see, I got to remember the exact title, Critical Selling Solutions, I believe it is. We're going to talk about the sales process. Most people, when we think about selling, what we're actually thinking about is our marketing. And so we need to add that last step. Marketing is really just to attract people into you. We need to then take those leads, those people that show up because of our marketing, and we need to turn them into customers. So that sometimes maybe the selling is really just order taking, and that's a sign of good marketing. But there are techniques and strategies that we can use to actually be asking for the order, closing, following up, all that kind of fun stuff. We're bringing in a guest trainer, David Haynes from Corel Trainer, to help us out. And because he is a fantastic salesperson, he does it in such a way that you don't feel icky about it, but yet you're like, I just can't wait to hand my credit card to him. So we're going to talk about those strategies. And so if you're not an OSG squad member or a club OSG member, head over to oursuccessgroup.com/memberships, and you can check out that there, or Club OSG, or really just reach out if you'd like to just talk about it and see if it's right for you, see which plan is right for you. We've got a couple different levels from the Club OSG, which is just, you get the training, it's kind of DIY, into Squad OSG, where it's everything. You get the 5 keys, you get all of it. And then if you really want to get into it and then also get accountability and support from others, we have the Masters of Success program. So just reach out, success@oursuccessgroup.com, and tell us what we can do to help you, and we'll figure out if there's a plan that works for you and go from there. So that's next Wednesday happening. And then we have, for the OSG squad members, we have the implementation meeting the week after that on Zoom. So great stuff happening over there at Our Success Group. And I appreciate everybody being here today, and looking forward to talking to you guys all again next week.